I'm going to make the other jump lines here in Studio. It's just, actually, it's better to make them here because then you know you always have them if you have to come back here and edit it. So I'm going to do that as well. So the first thing I'll do is I'll take my placement stitches, stitches and ungroup them. Right click, ungroup two. And you can see these are nicely grouped into, I have groups of these four, and then here I have groups. It's not changing down here, so click on the screen and then click. Okay. Which one did I? Okay, it was this one I wanted to click, but I have to click there and then click it, and then you see it. So they're all nicely grouped, and then this one here, again, it hasn't changed. Okay, there they are there. Those are the yellow ones. So these are nicely grouped even within the group, which is convenient. So this first placement stitch then is going to go before its perspective blanket stitch, which is right here. And to make it easy, all I have to do is look for the fill. And I'll just put the placement stitch after its perspective fill object. Because, the fills are easy to see. So I'll just click here, right click, drag, let go, insert after. Next one, so I look for the next fill. These are the blankets. So this is the next fill, this green one. So right click, drag, insert after. As I go down. So that was, this green fill. Now the next fill, there's the blanket. This fill is grouped, so if I click on it, you can see that's the fill. So sometimes that's hard to remember, oh, it's grouped, so it doesn't, I don't see the fill icon here. I have to look down here in the parts window. So just be aware of that. So I'm going to go after that pink. So let me grab this placement. Oops, messed up. Oh, my mouse, my pen tablet's acting up. Okay. I'm so sorry. Let me just use my hand. Whoops. Okay. Right click, drag, and after the pink. Okay. And then the next one. So here's the pink blanket stitch. So the next one is the green ones, and they're grouped too. Of course, it's not changing. Let's click in here. So there's the green fills. So our next placement up here. Insert after. And then the last one, of course, is right here. So here it is up here. And insert after. And just so you know, we're going to delete these fills once we get into editor. They're just here, so it just makes it easier to visualize your applique. So just remember that once we get into editor, we'll delete the fills. Okay, so that's done, and I have this saved as Hawaiian Block Final, so I just hit Control S. So now let's talk about this jump line. Okay, so when you're embroidering an applique on a quilt, you don't want to see any ties. You know, you don't want to see that 1/4 inch of tail from your ties, whether it be on the front or the back. You always want to bury your thread tails. So that means that you have to make them long, which means we have to create these jump lines. So that's why I created one. And I'll just copy and paste it, you know, several times. Now, I like to make it before the blanket stitch and after the blanket stitch. So before and after every single blanket stitch object, I'm going to have a jump line. So this jump line, let's see, where do I have it? It looks like I have it after. So that's a connection. Okay. Oh, no, that was just something I put in to make things consistent, this outline. So this jump stitch, I'm just going to drag it up, insert before. So that's our very first jump line. It's before our very first blanket stitch. So it's got to be the same color as the blanket stitch because we want it to stitch and then jump to this blanket stitch. We don't want the machine to cut the thread, so make sure you set your machine to not cut jump stitches. So that's very important. So, and the other thing is, let me make sure, because I've edited this video a long time ago, so I forgot what params. Okay, so I did make it length 5. That's good. And remember, we're going to have ties. So when we get into editor, we're just going to select with our magic wand thingy. It's not called the magic wand, but it's the lasso. And we're going to select all the top ones. We're going to make a box around all our jump lines. Select the top ones, split them off, and delete them. Then we'll select the bottom ones, split them off, and delete them. That's just so you don't have to take out tie-ons and tie-offs on these jumps. They'll be easy to take off. And this is long enough that your machine should catch. We just needed to catch 1 or 2 stitches here, you know. So you should be fine. So, and let's just hit edit to, first of all, let's go to this first object because, you know, my memory, I can't remember where it's ending. Okay, or starting. So they start and end here. I can see the little red dot, and it's an outline, so it's starting and ending there. So, but these are all going to stitch out continuously. So the last one here is ending there. So it's fine if I just make, say, just to be consistent, make the starting one here, and then I can move the ending one over here. That way we'll know our starting ones are on this side, our ending ones are on this side. So going back to the jump line, I can see the red dot at the top. That means it's starting down here and ending up there, and then it's going to jump to this object. And whoops, that's a little too close. I hit my plus sign too many times. I'm sorry. Okay, let's hit Control 1. Okay. Oh, my goodness. Okay, Control 1. Okay. So it's ending up at the top, and then it's going to jump down here and start stitching and then it'll, go to the next one, stitch that here, here, and then down here, it'll stitch this one, and it'll end down there. And you may say to yourself, well, shouldn't I make my after jump line down here? Because then maybe I could keep it out of the way and I won't have to worry about burying it or moving it or whatever. Yeah, that probably is a good idea. So like I said, I'm talking my way through all of this, and that's what you'll be doing too. So so if I had it jump here, I still want them to be like on the other side. So maybe I would put it down here. My mouse is really jumping around. Put it down here. And I mean, there are going to be other objects, that are going to interfere with it. For instance, this green one, is going next. So I guess I could like put it here so that it wouldn't interfere with the green one. But then when we get to, say, the pink ones, it's going to interfere there. So you are going to have to move it out of the way. So just keep that in mind. So I'll go ahead and now that I've kind of thought that part through, let's zoom out. Hopefully my mouse won't go too crazy. And I'll Control C, Control V. And it is hard to move a single straight line. If you try to move it by putting your cursor right here where these black squares are, sizing squares, it won't move. It'll stretch out. It'll try to stretch out, but it's a line, so then it won't stretch out. But if you come up here or down here and, press on it and then drag it, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to put it kind of like here, just so I can see, that it's maybe out of the way of the green one. And I still am not sure if it is. So I'm going to go ahead and view my jumps. I'll come up here, view, and you're going to see a lot of them, so be prepared. Okay. All right, so what I can see is, okay, we see this one. Let's start with the first one before we get too involved. And let's do a Control 1 and zoom in on it. It's not zooming in. Control 1. Okay, it's not listening to me. So let me hit my plus sign. And I can see the red dot, so I know it ends up there. And then it's jumping down to the start point. It must be right here. I can't see it because it's underneath the green. Let me hide the green. Okay, so there it is. But it's interesting because, I see a jump line to it as well. And that makes no sense, you say, because it's not even the right color. The one before it, the placement stitch. You could see it's coming from the placement stitch. And that's what I hate about jump stitches. It's like, why would you show me a jump stitch, from a placement stitch of a different color. That makes no sense. So it's going to be confusing when you show all these jumps. So just be aware of that. So at any rate, if I hid that, I wonder if the jump would go away. No, it doesn't. Okay. So we look down here. So that one is, it's going to go under this, the one we hid, the green one. So, we're going to have to basically take care of it, take care of this jump before we do the green one. So the whole thing about trying to avoid the green one down here, it doesn't even matter. And look, I was wrong. I thought it ended here. It ends up here, I think. So, let's see. Let's put this in the right order. Let's take this one and drag it up. So it's got to go after this last blanket stitch, even though this is a single stitch. We're putting it after that because remember that was the single stitch we added just for consistency. Okay, so now it's switched. Okay, good. But so here it is here, and like I said, it's just so hard to see. So with this design being so complex and all these jumps showing, it is a bit of a nightmare. So there's that one that it's jumping from. So it's ending there, and I could see it ends up at the top. So it ends right there. I could see the red dot. And then it's going to jump down here and start here and then come up here and end. Now you could reverse these if you want, but this is fine. It's fine like that. So anyways, it is going underneath the future pink one here. So what are you going to do, right? We're going to have to move it when we do the pink. So you'll have to bury it or just, cut it, take this out, and then just maybe drag it and move it over when we do this pink or what have you. So you are going to have to be aware of that when you're doing this design. And the other thing too is you may say to yourself, well, if it's ending, here on this outline, go here, if it's ending here, then I could have had it end so that it's going to be, underneath the green. Well, it is underneath the green. That's the green. Okay. So my tie won't show here. And you may say to yourself, I don't have to worry about it jumping over here. Well, you have a tie, that's going to show on the bottom. If you let your machine tie this off, it's going to pull your knot to the bottom, and you're going to see the knot on the bottom of the quilt. So the best thing to do is to let it jump, and then when you're done with this first object, take these threads out of here and come, back up to where your design ended. You'll have this long tail, and you may be able, since this is the ending, you may be able to pull on this top one, and the bobbin thread might come up, you know, of this long tail. And then yes, since it's in here, you might be able to hide it, but I doubt it because, you know, the knot, I'm saying, you might be able to hide the knot that's actually going to show, that's actually going to be a 1/4 inch long, you know, have 1/4 inch long tails. But I don't think you will, okay? And the reason is because this ends up at the top here, right by these blanket stitches. So you're not really going to be able to hide that. Okay, I just did Control-1 to zoom in. I'm trying to zoom out a little. You know, it's up here. It's ending up here. If I hit Edit, you know, it's ending up here. You might, I mean, look how close you are to these blanket stitches and everything. So you're better off just doing it the traditional quilter's way of burying that long tail and then cutting it, meaning you're burying it in between where the batting is, you know. So you'll take your long thread tail, let me X out of here, and let me zoom out. I'll just click on, say, this one and hit Control-1. So you'll take your long thread tail from here and you'll pull on it to get your bobbin thread to come up, and then you'll tie a knot, you know, like an overhand knot, I think they call it. And you'll see I have lots of videos, I think, on burying threads. I have a quilting series on YouTube, so just look at WeQuilt Studio on YouTube and look on my playlists, and you'll see me burying knots all over the place. But at any rate, so you'll pull up your bobbin thread here, and you'll tie an overhand knot that's about 1/8 of an inch away from where the threads came out of, and you'll stick, you'll use a snag it needle, and you'll snag the long tail and bury it in the batting, and then you'll pull the thread up somewhere around here in the center, and then just pull on it and cut the long thread. So then your knot will be buried in the batting. Then you don't have to worry about anything. So you're probably going to have to do that as you go, just because these tails are just going to get in your way and you're going to be frustrated. And so while you're burying that one, you might as well bury this tie on jump thread, this one. So this one jumped to the design, whoops, not that one, this one. And the design started here, and if I hit Edit, okay, there's my starting point down there, right here. Okay, so you'll do the same thing then. And actually, that starting point is the same as the ending point for this one. Just make sure when you bury your threads that when you stick the needle in to bury it, you don't you don't stick your needle in a hole that's already made, because if you do that, the knot will come right out. You have to make a brand new hole for when you bury your thread, just so you know. So let's zoom out, Control 1, just click on one of the objects. So then those two are set. Let me slide over more of them and hit Control 1. So then what I can do is I can select both of these, the beginning and the ending, and copy and paste them from my next ones. And since I decided I'm just going to bury them as I go, I'm just going to put my starting ones over here and my ending ones over here. So for the next blanket stitch, which is this one here, I'll make sure I put my beginning and ending before and after that. So here's my beginning, my ending. I'll copy and paste. Control C, Control V. I'll take this one, and I should have looked at the number. That was number 12. So the beginning is going to go right click drag before 12. The ending is going to go after 12. Okay. And I'm going to just move them. So the beginning one, I'm just going to take it. I'm going to hold my control, and I'm just going to drag it like that, just so it's not in the same spot. And then this one, I'll hold control. Oops, see, that one didn't go. Hold control. Sometimes you have to like, oh, what did I do? Oh, it looks like I have them both selected. That's interesting. Control C. I must have like selected them both somehow. Weird. Okay, this one's on top. Okay, so I'll hold control. I wonder if there's a way to... Oh, my mouse is acting up. I wonder if there's a way to select them both. Oh yeah, you can if you drag a box around them on the screen, but I didn't do that. Anyways, let's try it again. Okay, so I didn't hold my cursor on it for a long time. I just pressed on it and dragged it. So I guess that worked better. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and I'll just copy and paste those two, Control C, Control V. And my next one now is the pink. And here's the placement for that, and here's the blanket stitch is 17. So I'll just click here, right click, hold before 17. And this one, now it's after 18 because it becomes 18. I'll click on 17, hold control, and drag it. I'll click on this one, hold control, and drag it. So I guess I could have left them both up here if I was going to do this as I go. So just make sure you don't mess up your hoop, you know. You don't want to make sure your hoop is nice and tight while you're doing this burying. And like I said, if you don't want to, you could just move them out of the way and not bury them. You know, maybe have some painter's tape on hand and tape them out of the way and so on. But at any rate, so let's copy and paste these, hold control. So my next ones now are going to be 22 here. Control C, Control V. Because the green one, you know, that's the fill. There's the placement. Wait a minute. Okay. And 22 is the blanket. So 26. right click, hold, drag, insert before, insert after, Control S because I haven't saved in a while. So I'll click that one, hold Control, drag it, the ending one, hold Control and drag it. Hopefully these are all long enough because I'm not checking them because there's just too many. I might as well click not to view the jumps because it's just a mess anyways. Okay, so 22 and 24, Control C, Control V. And let's see. This is our last one, so it's 27. Right click, drag, insert before, and then this one is already after. So, okay, we're all done except I do have to edit this first object, this one. The blanket stitch is still an outline, and I forgot to change that into a manual stitch and edit those rogue stitches. So as you can see, if I zoom in, okay, you can see this one needs to be, not that one. Well, yeah, this one and this one. And this one and this one need to be fixed. And I guess I could fix these two as well. So I forgot to do that. And since this one is a design that is connected with these connection stitches, I really don't want to have to, you know, do all four of these objects. So I'm just going to do one of them, the first one. And the first one is, it looks like it's the one on the left here. Yeah, this one. I'm just going to do that one and rotate it around. And I actually may just leave these connection stitches as is and then put them in their right place so then I don't have to deal with them. Looks like, let's see, what are they? Oh, they're just straight lines because they're going to be underneath the green. So I guess, but isn't this is the one where I added another one? I'm just going to leave them. And I'll kind of show you now. I was going to edit this offline, but I better show you how I do it because it might be a little confusing. So I'm going to just, have it selected and I'm going to ungroup it. Ungroup. And just for the sake of not getting confused, I'm going to turn it yellow. I'll turn it yellow now because then I'll know that I have to move it up to the top with the rest of these. So, and now I will do convert to editable stitches, but these, like I said, are going to be black, and I'm only going to edit the first one, which is that one. I'll just slide over the rest of these and delete them for right now. And go ahead and turn this black. And then I'm going to leave the green as is because I want to be able to see them all together. So I'll hit Control 1 to zoom into this one and hit Edit. You can hit it on the side here if you like. Okay. Yeah, this is probably going to be a little confusing for you to see. So I'm going to X out and hide those green blanket stitches. So I don't want you to get confused. So there's the green. I'll leave the fill there, but the blanket stitches that are after it, right here, I'll hide those. Okay. So now we'll just see the yellow. And I'll hide the pink ones, the pink blanket stitches. There's the pink, and here's their blanket stitches. Okay. So now we'll go back to this one. And I'll just leave it down here at the bottom for right now, because I'm going to rotate it, you know, when I'm done editing it. So I'll hit Edit. And let's see, how do I want to do these? I'll make these so that they're kind of like that. So I'll do the same down here. I'm just kind of estimating. Oh no, that's not. I want them to be in the center of these two, so I'm not doing a very good job. This line is throwing me off, but this one just looks better. I don't know why I can't seem to get it right. Okay, we'll let that go. And then these I was going to adjust. Let's hit enter and see how that looks. That's good. And I'm trying to decide if I should delete this stitch. I mean, it is a very small distance here that it's going to be underneath the green. But so, I mean, it's possible that it might stick out because of the push and pull and so on, and, you know, the placement of the applique when I finally get to placing it. But there's not one on this side, and I don't know. It may look fine with just having a triple stitch here. So, because you know, this is going to be a triple stitch, so we could just leave this as a triple stitch with nothing here. That way it won't interfere with this stitch coming out. There won't be bulk. So I guess I will go ahead and delete it. So it's kind of tricky when you delete one of these blanket stitch points. Remember, these are manual stitches, so it's as if we were an editor. Because the way that a triple bean is I'm going to zoom in just a hair. After it does this stitch, okay, after it does this whole, you know, jumping out and jumping back, I shouldn't use the word jump, but stitch out, stitch back. Once it's back here, it then goes backward and does its triple and then comes back. so there's three layers of stitches there. So then it comes back, and so then from here it goes forward, out, back, and then back, forward. That makes it the triple stitch. So keeping that in mind, when we go to edit it, if you think about it, we're going to, we're going to be here with our needle, and then we're going to go forward, and then we're going to come out, but then just go right back. So there's like this extra stitch of coming back, this extra stitch point here. So when we delete this stitch point, we'll want to delete one stitch point here, in which case this is what it'll look like. You'll be here, and then you'll go forward, back, forward. So there's your 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's like a triple bean. Did I say triple bean before? This is a blanket stitch, but we're going to turn it into a triple bean. A blanket stitch is basically a triple bean, but it comes out and back as well. So when I click edit, okay, so I'll be deleting this, but then this one I'm going to delete as well. So delete this, and then this one I delete. So now, actually, yeah, there is another one. It made it look like there wasn't one there. Embird does that. If you'll notice, let me do Control Z. Okay. I'm going to delete this one just so you can see. I'll hit delete, and then I'm going to delete this one. And then it almost looks like there's nothing there, right? But there really is. If I click, there is a stitch point there. In fact, there's one there, and there's one under it as well. Those are your 2 that make the triple bean. Coming here, and then back, and then forward. If I click on there. So this one here is the doubled one. So it can get very confusing, but just remember, if you're going to delete one of these outers, these ones that come out, you'll be deleting the outer and then the one before it. Okay, and that's what we did here. So I'll do it one more time because I know this is confusing. I'm Control Z to get back. Okay. So I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to hit my delete button. It is selected. And then this one's selected. And I hit my delete button again. Looks like nothing's there. But see, even if I just click this one, you see there is something there. Okay. So, and it looks like it's, like an ending point or something. But there's actually two stitch points there, and you'll see when we get into editor if I remember to show you, but just take my word, since this is a manual stitch, we delete 2 stitch points, I should say, here and there. And so I'll hit enter, and then I'll zoom out because we're going to rotate this. So I'll go to transformation window, and if you click here, you can move it. Move. Okay, I have to grab the icon. Haven't been in Studio Regular in a long time. Let me do it again. Move. And then we'll just drag this here. Okay. So we're going to be rotating it 4 times. Put the rotational axis in the center by clicking down here. Okay, there it is in the center. And click apply click apply to duplicate 3 times because we've already got one of them. 1, 2, 3. Computer's moving slow. Okay. So close that. So here they are. And I'll just take them and drag them up to the yellow ones. Insert before. And now since I changed the blanket stitch, I deleted those stitch points. I'm not going to use these connections because they might be different now and I just don't want to mess with that. So I'll just get rid of the yellow ones. I'll group them and bring them to the top. I'll bring them up here. These are my first ones. I'll insert before. Let me just bring that back. And I'm going to slide over them and right click. And group 2 is taken. You could see ungroup 2 is showing, in bold. But I just want to group them again because I want them to all be together. So I am going to hit group 2 again. So now they're group 2. They're grouped 2 times. They're grouped within their own. Some of them are grouped correctly, like let's see, do I have one of them grouped? Oh, they're all showing ungrouped down in the parts window. But they should be grouped correctly. In other words, if I did ungroup 2, actually it didn't work. Let's see. If I ungroup 1, now that means they're all going to ungroup. So I never did group these correctly. So I thought I did, but it would be like this. It would be these 4, group 1, and then this one is by itself. These 4, group 1. These 4, group 1. I might have just done this incorrectly. There's that one again. So it looks like I edited this a couple times. So I kind of made a mistake, so I apologize. I've got it in here 2 times yellow. Trying to think why I did that. I can't recall. Because I've edited this so many times that I might have made a mistake and grouped it together twice. But to be honest, guys, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure why I have it in here twice. Was one supposed to be the placement? Let's see. Let's see. Were these the placement stitches? No. They were the blanket. Were they the cut file? No. They're all the same size. So I honestly don't recall. So I apologize. So I'll just delete these extras. Okay. So these are all group 1. I'll just group 2. Like I warned you at the beginning, there's a lot of mistakes in this 2-part video. And like I said, I wasn't even going to show it, but I want you to see, you know, just the amount of thinking that goes into a complex design like this. So at any rate, so we'll hide the yellow. We're going to delete that when we get into editor. I'll hit Control S. And like I said, I'm just going to make my connections here by sliding over the last 3, not the first one, and do right click, create connection. And you'll see my connections, they're a little bit different now, you know. So, but they're fine, they're still all hidden, and we'll just leave them as is. And so then this one, we're gonna just group these. Oh, but this one that was slanted, we were gonna make an extra one. That one's incorrect now. So we'll delete that. And because the last one that stitches is that one, and let's go ahead and generate, let's see. Okay, so we've got from here to here, and then here to here, and here to there. And so if we want to make this consistent, we could make another one from here, because this is ending here, down to there. That would be our outline instead of the outline I just deleted. So I'll just go into outline, and I'll zoom in, and I'll have snap to node on. So because that's where that is ending. And we want it to come down here to this node. And we'll make it a straight line up here instead of this curve. And then it should look consistent. So now all of our, let me go slide it up into place. Whoops. Okay, I'm in Studio Next. Insert after. Right click, drag, set identical color. And so now, if I hold Control and just select all the connections plus this outline, you have a little crisscross shape in there. And if you didn't know where the ending was, like I just know by looking, and I could see the beginning one was there, so I knew the ending one was there. If you didn't know that, you could just put in a straight outline and then move this into position after this one. And then when you clicked it, you could have went edit, and then if you hover here, align beginning to previous object. So then the beginning node would jump to this one. And then you could click this, align N to next object. Well, couldn't do that because this isn't the next object. So the only one you could do is the beginning one. So I guess you would have to know where to connect it there. So now we're definitely good to go to editor. So I'm going to slide over just these, not this one, because I want to remember that it's a extra outline stitch there. And we'll group one, Control S, and we'll go into editor, and I'll kind of walk you through, you know, what you do in editor, and then also kind of like what you would do at your machine. So I'm leaving this cross here ungrouped, but maybe to make it easier for you, I'll group it. Now you could see that that's the cross here. So when we get into editor, Control S, when we get into editor, we'll be deleting the yellow. That was our original outlines. And we'll be deleting the fills. So all we should be left with is the crosshair, the placement stitches, and their blanket stitches. Okay. Before we move on, I did want to talk a little bit about the tie-ups in Embird. There is a bit of an issue with the tie-ups, and I did make a request to Embird about changing this. And the issue is Embird does not allow you to assign the number of tie-ups and the length of those tie-ups to each individual object. Like, you know, say this one, say this outline, I want to have 6 ties. You know, just like all of my outlines that I normally would make in a design, I like to have 6 tie-ons and 6 tie-offs, and I like to have the length of them be 0.7 mils. But for my placement stitches that I'm going to be taking out, all these orange ones, and then all of my jump berry lines, these vertical ones that are before and after. Let me zoom out. These jump berry lines, this one and this one, for instance, you know, and all the rest of them. Well, those and the placement lines, I'd want 0 ties. So I'd like to be able to designate number of ties and length of ties individually to my individual objects. As it is now, all of the outlines have to have either 6 ties or 0 ties. So I have to decide which scenario is easier for me to address once I'm in editor. You know, because in editor then I can delete ties or I can add them, but since most of my objects here, most of my outline objects, the crosshair as well, I don't need ties there because I'm not stitching it. I'm just going to follow it. But at any rate, the crosshair, the placement lines, and the jump lines, you know, if I go through and select all of those all the way down, I'd want 0 ties. The only outline I can see on this whole design that I want the traditional 6 ties is this extra one that I added. And you may say to yourself, well, you could just make that a connection stitch, but no, you don't want to, because it's going to connect to this jump line. We want this to have a tie at the end. So we don't want to turn it into a connection stitch. So, and then you may say, well, I really don't need it. I only put it in there for consistency because if I slide over these, you know, I wanted this to look consistent. So this one has to have 6 ties. And remember, if I'm stitching this on the quilt, if I'm going right through the batting, it's these connection stitches are going to show, on the other side of the quilt. So I wanted it to look consistent. So what do? Do I set my default ties for all my outlines? In other words, if I just hit Control A, selecting everything, go into params, go into this global, that's where the ties are. And this here, tie up stitches, it's not main, it's not offset, it's not length, but this one, I have already set them to 6, and then 0.7 mils for length. And when I change those numbers, you just use your left or right mouse. I clicked on this drop down arrow and said save as default. Okay. So it doesn't matter what I change this to for each individual object, because when I click compile and put into editor, everything gets regenerated before it goes into editor. As soon as you hit this compile button, everything gets regenerated. And it's going to generate your ties according to the last settings that you put in this window. So I have Control A, Control All selected, and I'm using this as my settings for all of my outlines and everything else, the manuals and so on. And then when I click apply, everything gets generated according to this window. And then even when I hit compile and Embird generates everything all over again, it'll generate it according to what's the last thing that was on this window. So even though my default, okay, is 6, if I change it to this, with everything selected, you could see them all up here as well, and then hit apply, then all my outlines will have 0 ties, which is great for the placement stitches and the jump berry lines and even my crosshair, which doesn't get stitched anyways. But that one diagonal outline here is going to be an issue because I'll have to add ties to this when I get into editor. It's going to have 0 ties at the end. The beginning of it is a blanket stitch, okay? This is just attached to the blanket stitch. So the beginning of this whole, well, not the green ones, these are on the yellows, but the beginning of this diagonal line are these blanket stitches. At the end of it is an outline. An easy way to handle this is just to change this to a manual stitch. Convert to editable stitches here in Studio, then it'll follow this direction, and then it would be solved. I just so happen to have that situation here where it's easy for me to solve. But for some people it might not be so easy. They may have to keep it in outline for one reason or another, depending on whatever they're working on. So that's why it's really important that we all request to Embird that we get to have this option for each individual object, not just for each object type. Okay? So I encourage you all to please write Embird at embird.net and request individual tie options for each individual object, not just object types. So I'm going to show you, an easy way here, but then I'm going to show you the hard way. The hard way would be leaving this as an outline and then adding the tie in editor. So either scenario, this is the window that's going to be used for our tie-up stitches. But then I'm going to show you, an easy way to fix our situation by converting this to editable. And then I'll show you the hard way by leaving it as an outline and adding the tie in editor. So we'll click apply for right now. And it generates, you'll see it's generating down here. So everything is going to get generated according to these ties. And then it kind of locked up. When this gets buried sometimes, that's what happens. Now this time it came behind this, so it's easy to unlock it. So I'll just right click here, parameters, and then click OK. Okay, so we're going to do the easy way, and the easy way, like I said, is to take this diagonal stitch and convert to editable stitches. So now it's a manual stitch, but we got to move it back up, right click, hold, and we're going to insert before, because that's the one I'm keeping, this one I'm deleting. So it's going to follow the exact same stitch length and everything. And now that it's a manual stitch, I'll hit generate, and it's going to have the ties. And if I hide the green and I go into 3D and let me zoom in, it's kind of hard to see the stitch points on here. So it's a little difficult to see. If I go into normal view, you're not going to really, you can kind of see the points, the stitch points, but they should all be consistent now, because they'll be the same as they were when they were an outline, but now they'll have a tie on it. So that's the easy way. So now when I go into editor, I don't have to change anything. But let's do it the hard way, where we left it as an outline. And then I'll show you how to fix that when you get into editor. So I'll just undo that a couple times. Let me undo again. I just would rather hit undo. Now it's at the bottom. I'll hit undo one more time. In Studio Next, you got to be careful with your undo, because a lot of times it undoes 2 times. Goes back 2 times. It's a pain. But in Studio Regular, it obeys correctly. So there it is up there as an outline, and it's gone down there. Okay. So the other thing I forgot to address was the stitch length. If my length on my connection stitches here, if that length is going to be, let me show you a connection stitch. Click on the actual blanket stitches, this connection stitch, and I go into params. Their min and max is 0.5 and 1.7. Now they will go up to 1.7 if there's a straight line, and these are straight lines, but I can increase this to 2, and I can select all my connection stitches in my entire design. It's going to ungroup everything if I do that, but I could make them all, 0.5 and 2.0, or I can make them all more like a quilting stitch of, we'll just try 1.5 and 2.0. I could do that, but I'd have to do it for all of them. And like I said, when I select all of the connection stitches, it ungroups everything. So just know, be prepared for that. So if I'm going to make these 1.5 and 2.0, you know, the connections, then I probably should make this one, the one I added, the same length. So then I'll just hit apply. Okay. And so remember, because we've got connection stitches, okay, we've got them here on this first blanket stitch object. This one, we don't have any connection stitches because it's a single object. This one's grouped. This one, it looks like I have all jumps because, you know, they're farther apart, so there's no connection stitches. This one, the same thing. It's not changing down here, so let's hit Control 1. Okay. Still not changing down here, so click outside. Okay, those have no connection stitches, and then this one still not changing. Whoops, I'm trying not to click inside the box. Whoops, I'll just hit Control 1 with it selected, click outside. Okay, so these have no connection. So the only connection stitches in this design are up here. So those are the only ones I'll have to regroup. So I'll just do, I could select them here. There's so many ways I could select them. I could just hold Control down here without ungrouping them. It's easy enough. But slide that up for a minute, just so you could see them all. Doesn't want to slide. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The other thing I could do instead of selecting them is to click on this item and then just go into params, and you could see, so it's got the blanket stitches. I'm leaving this as is because the blanket stitches are following the orders of the original stitches, okay, that I originally had, the ones that are in yellow. These up here, I have to hide that again. So I'm not changing those lengths, but I can just click here on connection, and as you could see, they're grayed out. I forgot because I already changed one of them. But if I didn't change one of them, you could have just changed their length this way. So since I changed one of them, I'll just, there's so many other ways I could do this. I'm just going to ungroup them for you. But here's the one I changed. I changed that one to 1.5 and 2.0. So I could just click on the other two. Okay. And then right click on this one and then hold my right mouse button, slide down, left or let go, set identical parameters. Okay. So now each of these will be 1.5 and 2.0. I'll hit Control S. The other way I could have done it, if these were grouped, group 1, Control S, is I could have did without even selecting anything, because I know these are the only ones, but to make sure, I could have done select. I'll have new selection checked instead of select subset. Select subset is if you're just clicking on this one, say, and you just want to select what's within this object. But I'm going to click nothing just to make sure I didn't miss any. And I'll do select, have new selection, and then connections, all connections. And you could see, oh, I have some up here. Oh, but those are yellow. I'm not going to worry about those. Well, they're selected. It doesn't matter. Okay, nothing down here was done. So I could have changed them that way. Gone into params. You know, they're already changed. But like I said, there's so many ways to change them. But then you have to regroup them again. You know, group one. And then these up here, okay, I'll have to regroup that again. And then with this, if I do group two, it should, like, and then if I did ungroup two, it looks like I missed one. Looks like I missed these. Sorry. Let me group one on these. Okay. I just want to make sure that it was obeying, because group two should give you all the group ones, which it did, except I messed up that one. I'll just group two again. Ungroup one is taken, group two, okay. And then hide that, Control S. There's just so many ways to do things, and there's so many things to explain here. That's why this is like a 3-part series. So anyways, remember what we did. We made all of our outlines have 0 ties, except this one that we want to have 6 ties is going to have 0 ties when we get into editor. Okay. And I'll just hit Control 1 to bring it all into view. And so when we get into editor, we're going to see if it obeyed and did 0 ties. All we have to check are these. Because if these are 0 ties, then everything else will be 0 ties. And that also means that we have to address this one and give it a tie. Remember, when you hit compile, it regenerates all over again. And I want to make sure that it's taking the 0 tie for the outlines that we assigned. And I want to make sure it doesn't go back to our default tie of 6 for the outlines when I hit compile. Okay, so we're going to compile now and put into editor. And it will generate all over again. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. Okay, so I get this screen. I'm saving as a GIF. Hit OK. I already saved it once, and it's up here saved. That's why it's asking me. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the yellow. So I'll right-click, delete color. Okay, and then our first blanket stitch is black. I'm just going to go to that and right-click, separate color. And my first stitches, it says there's only 9 of them. That tells me I did obey. I don't think there's any ties on that. So I'll click on it here in the items window, and then I'll click bring into view up here. It's right here. There's 9 stitches on this first jump line. So I'll put in a 5, hit enter. I'll click zoom to selected. And if I hit points editing mode, there they are. And I'll just click outside to unselect them. I'll click 1. So that's 5 to 6. You can see there's no ties. If I hit tab, it goes 6 to 7. If I hold shift tab, it's going to go backward. 3, 2, 1 to 1. So 1 to 1, hit tab. 1 to 2, it stays in the same spot always. 2 to 3. So there's no ties. Okay. So that means that it did obey whatever was on that global screen in Studio, and I had 0 for number of ties for the outlines. That means that the slanted outline that I had at the end of this blanket stitch object, well, that slanted outline is not going to have any ties on it either. So I have to put them on. So that's the only place where I have to add a tie. And it'll just be a tie off. And it's hard to add just a tie off in Editor. You know, it likes to add, if you tell it to add ties, it'll add a tie at the beginning and a tie at the end. What we're going to do is I'm going to select this blanket stitch object, and I'll just zoom to selected by clicking this. It's still zooming to this part because of what I have up here. So you could either like click outside and maybe click again. It's still showing 7 to 8 up here, so that's what it's going to zoom to, 7 to 8 of these. I can just click down here. Now it's showing, and then I could zoom to selected. But the area we want is this line here. You can't see it because the green is hiding it. So let me just, we're going to delete these fills in a minute, but until then, let me just hide the green. Okay, now we can see these lines. So this is the one that has no tie on it, and this is the ending of it. And I just remember that because this was our first object, and you know, this one, then this one, and this was our last object. There's where it ends, and then if I zoom in, it ends here, and then it stitches this line, but right here it has no tie off. So this is the end of this object. Even though it's not a blanket stitch, it was a stitch that we connected to the blanket stitch. You know, we snapped it right to it so that we wouldn't have to have a tie here, and we would just keep things consistent looking. So to get to this part, well, we could see we're from, it starts at stitch number 12 and it goes 684 stitches. Well, 12 plus 684 is 695. So we're highlighting from 12 to 695. So I'm just going to highlight, say, 690 to 695. I'll hit enter. And now I know it's hard for you to tell, but this part is red because these orange stitches make it kind of hard to tell the difference. I kind of wish I would have made these orange ones blue so that you wouldn't get confused, because orange is too close to red, which is always the selection color. We could change that, and I'll change it here. Options, selection color. Okay. So now what's selected here is in blue. So 690 to 695 is in blue. And then if I hit points editing mode, okay, now click outside, and then I'll click anywhere, and I'll hit tab once. Okay, twice. Okay, and the next time I hit it, I'll see the trim code. Now for us to add a tie here, we kind of want to get rid of the trim code. So, because it's just going to mess up our tie. You know, if I try to put a tie in, it'll put it in before and after this trim code, and then it'll just be a mess. So with it selected, I'm going to hit delete, and now there's no trim code. So now let's go up farther and hit tab and see what we got. So I'll hit tab, tab, and then from there, you look up, it says 695 to 696. If I hit tab again, it jumped down. When I right click on this one and do stitch type, it tells me it's a floating. So even though I'm not changing anything, it's a floating. It's telling me it's a floating. I didn't change anything. Just by hitting OK, because it said floating, when I hit OK, it asks me the question. Do I want to insert tie-on and offs? Okay, meaning it's going to put a tie-on here, and it's going to put a tie-off before this jump, way up there. Okay, and trimming codes before the jump, because remember, we deleted the trim code. So do I want to do that? Yes. So we've got our ties there. Let's just click here. Let me hit tab once, and now I'll hit shift tab to go back. Yes, these have ties now, and we don't want those because these are jump lines, but there's only a few. We could delete those in a minute, but I just want to show you. So I'll shift tab back, keep hitting shift tab, and I'm up here, and look, I have my ties. Right click and drag. Now if I hit shift tab, I keep hitting it. Okay, tab, tab. Okay, I'm going to start counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the trim code. So it only put like 3 of them in there. Do I want to add more? Because, you know, Embird only puts 3 to 4 stitches in for a tie in editor. That's their default in editor when you add ties. Do I need more? I would like more. Even though this is going to be covered up by the green, I would like more. So then before the trim, because now it's on the trim, I'll hold shift tab and go back. And I'm going to zoom in up here. Drag it over. Let's see. I might have held it down too long. Let me hit tab. Okay, I'm not clicked on anything. Okay. Okay, there I'm there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's not the trim code because the triangle's not in bold. Just the square is in bold. So from there, I counted 4. I can right click, insert. Okay, so it inserted kind of right on top of it. So I'll put it, say, it's not snapping because I'm not zoomed in enough. If you zoom in enough, it snaps to the grid that's behind it. Sometimes you don't see the grid though. You have to zoom in really far. Show you what I mean. I don't want to hit the other magnifier because then all the other nodes will show up. Stitch points rather. I don't want to lose it. Okay, there you could see this blue grid behind. That's what it snaps to. So this was 5, and with it out here, I'll just insert again 6. Okay. So 4, 5, see how it snapped, and then 6. And then if I hit tab, now the trim code will show up. And then it'll jump down. So there's my 6 ties. And then when it jumps down, if I hit tab again, it stays on it. So I'll hit delete because I don't want ties down here on this jump berry line. Okay, I'll click again, hit tab. Okay, went too far. Shift tab. I think it's going to jump up. if I hit Shift Tab one more time. Yeah, it did. Okay, let me jump down, Tab, delete, click, delete, click, delete. Okay, so now if I hit Tab, I jump up there, Shift Tab, I jump down there. I hit Shift Tab again and it's still on there. Do I want to leave 2 stitch points down? A lot of times Embird does that, but I can't recall if it does it when there's no ties. Let me click points editing mode again to get this one. Let me hit Tab. This might be going the other way. Let's see, I don't have my stitch direction showing. Options, or let's see, view, stitch direction. Okay, it's going that way, so Tab. Okay, now Shift Tab again. Yeah, so it is doing 1 extra before it jumps, or before it moves. So the 1 extra stitch point here is normal, and that's because I have add jump to first stitch checked. This is checked by default, and I think that's just so people could either pull up their bobbin thread or make sure that their machine catches or whatever. There's lots of reasons to have this. I'm just going to leave it. So I'll leave this as is. Okay. So now that outline has the 6 jumps. So remember, in summary, what we did, Shift Tab to get back up there. We came up to this section here, this diagonal outline, and there were no ties on it, and we just kept hitting Tab to get to the trim point, to the trim code. We deleted the trim code, and then we were on the last stitch point. We hit Tab to get way down to the jump line, and then on that jump line, Tab, Tab. Oh, it's not going now because I kind of messed it up. Let's see if I'm here. Tab. Oh, it's jumping up there. Okay. I'll click on here. I'll just go say 695 to 701, hit enter. I'll hit points editing mode, click outside. I'll just click here, Tab, Tab, Tab. It's doing my ties. It did my trim code, and now it'll jump down. Okay, so we deleted, in summary then, we deleted the trim code up there. Then we hit Tab to come back, to come down here to our jump berry line, and this is where we right-clicked stitch type. You know, it said it's a floating. Yes, we know it's a floating. All we did was click OK, just so that we could get that question. Do you want to add jumps? I'm going to hit cancel. We added our jumps. At that point, while you're still down here, you could delete these and then do Shift Tab to get back up and then deal with this, because remember, you only get 4 ties. If that's enough, then fine. If not, then go ahead and add your stitch points like we did. We just added 2 more stitch points for 5 and 6 and put them, snapped them in. If you recall, I had to zoom in to get the grid to show. So that's the way that I would handle it. Now, and you know, that's a lot. That was only one object I had to work with. That's why I requested to Embird to please give us the option to set the number of ties for each individual object, not just the object type, not just, well, okay, all outlines have to have 0 ties, or all outlines have to have 6 ties. No, no, no. We don't want that. We want, you know, to click on an outline object in Studio and say, I want this number of ties, you know, and click on a different outline object. I want this number of ties, okay? These orange placement lines, they're going to be so easy. If I go into 3D, they're going to be so easy to take out because they're not going to have any tie-ons or tie-offs. And even if they don't catch right away, it's okay. You'll get most of them. Then you'll see your placement where you're supposed to put your applique fabric. Okay.